Hey teacher friends, Ben Johnson here. Happy Financial Literacy Month. Today I want to deliver my tips for investing for retirement. You can reach me at teachermullah@gmail.com. You can get a copy of this presentation at bit.ly/mullah21. I have an image of a tree with this quote on it because today I'm here to help you begin to plant your tree that will hopefully provide a rich and rewarding retirement for you, however you envision that. I can tell you right now, I never plan to sit under the shade of your tree. I don't plan to cut any branches. I don't plan to cut your tree down when it's done. In other words, I'm going to give you unbiased, non-conflicted information today, and that is hard to find in the financial industry, and that's why I'm giving this presentation now. So let's get started. Normally when I bring up investing and money with teachers, the first response I see is they'll stick their head in the sand and pretend like it's not a problem, it doesn't exist. Unfortunately, that's the very worst thing that you can do because money turns out to be very important, even though many of us don't care for it, including myself. I have good news. You can pull your head out of the sand by reading an excellent new book by Carl Fish titled Too Long Didn't Read: Financial Literacy for Employees of Colorado Public Schools. Carl was a former math teacher in Arapahoe High School, a very smart and generous man, and he wrote this book to help Colorado educators out. You can get a copy of it at Amazon for $9. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. Ask your librarian to pick up a copy for your school or for your library. I want to draw special attention to pages 79 through 84. That is where Carl poses questions to determine what your risk tolerance is, and then he suggests what type of funds you might invest in with your 401k or your 457 based on your risk tolerance. Lots of times that's the very thing that you will go to a financial advisor for, and Carl will very thoughtfully make some suggestions, and that ultimately it's your decision to make based on your risk tolerance. But that's a very helpful part of the book that I have dog-eared. I don't want this presentation to be doom and gloom. Luckily, as a Colorado teacher, you will be paying into Colorado PERA, and it's an outstanding benefit despite what you may have heard about it in the public. It will be here when you retire, so ignore some of the negativity that you've maybe heard. It has some nice benefits in addition to that monthly payout that you'll get. It has a survivor benefit that's a little bit like life insurance. You can call PERA to find out more about that. And then after 5 years, it comes with disability benefits should you become disabled while you're working. So just feel good knowing that this is a great tool that you're going to have for you in your retirement. Why do you need to care about money? As a teacher, you won't make a lot, so you need to get good at money. The new pension tables are not as favorable for the newer teachers as they are for the veteran teachers. You may not last in teaching until age 65 or 35 years of service. If you do a good job with your investments, you can go ahead and quit whenever you're tired, and you can use those investments to get you through until your pension becomes available. If you do nothing, you are screwed. If you leave it to a financial advisor, you may be giving up a lot of your wealth, or you may be taken advantage of without even knowing it. Learn yourself, and you can have a rich and rewarding retirement. Carl's book is awesome. Read it. Okay, we live in an increasingly complex world. Money is the most powerful tool you have to help navigate it. Have some FU money in case you ever end up in a position where you're not happy. It will give you some choice and flexibility. Eventually, your investments can make as much money as your day job, and that's the ultimate goal, is to make money while you sleep. 11 steps to a rich and rewarding retirement. Number 1, and most important, you have to live below your means. Make a budget. Stick to it. If you're spending more money than you're making, that doesn't allow you to save or invest anything, so that's most important. Step 2, have a 3-month emergency fund. Things are going to come up. You need to have 3 months of liquid money in a savings account that you can use for those emergencies so that you don't have to go into credit card debt. Pay off any debt that you have that's greater than 5% ASAP, and don't take on new debt. The only debt that's really acceptable to have is your home mortgage, and hopefully you're down to like a 3% loan or something there. Earn more. You can do that with lane changes by getting a cheap master's degree and then taking PD classes to move across the teacher pay scale. As a teacher, you can offer tutoring, lessons, you can take on extra duty work, you can start a summer business, but especially in those early years, you need to earn more money. Make investing 15% or more a priority. And again, that's where you have to make some personal decisions. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live now versus in retirement? And save a percentage that's appropriate. 15% is one that people will shoot for. You have to automate it through your payroll reduction, and you can fill out paperwork to do that, or you can call Empower to set up that 457. It's got to be automated because we don't have the willpower to do it ourselves every month. Number 6, start early or you'll have to save a lot more later. I was a bit of a late bloomer at this. Now I'm having to save 50% of my salary towards my retirement. Young teachers watching this, if you're starting this before age 25, you can get away with 10 or 15% and do just fine. If you're a teacher in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you got to make this a priority and start saving 50% of your salary towards your investments. Number 7, use your tax advantage accounts. Here we have a great 401k, low fees, a great 457 with low fee Vanguard funds, and then you can always do a Roth IRA outside of your workplace through a good low cost brokerage like Vanguard or Fidelity. Number 8, use low fee index funds or target date funds. You're not going to be trying to pick stocks. It's really hard to do. Instead, you're just going to buy everything. So for example, you may pick the S&P 500 and buy the 500 largest stocks in the US. Now Carl's book explains all of this, so you need to read it. And then the target date fund is the ultimate set it and forget it. And if you sign up for the 401k, you're automatically placed into that fund and you don't have to know anything. It will adjust your stocks and your bonds as you get older and closer to retirement. Number 9, put a percentage of your raises or extra income towards your retirement. You've got to do that as you make more money. You've got to save more money. Number 10, avoid mistakes. Ask for help. Ask me for help. Go to bogleheads.org. Ask for help there. Join a Facebook money group. Do some crowdsourcing there. Don't make mistakes, especially big financial ones. Ignore the media and the news. There's always going to be news about the stock market crashing or buying something like Bitcoin. Stick with your plan. Ignore the news and the media. And then number 11, spend on the things you enjoy. And that includes making donations to good causes. For my family, we enjoy experiences, and so we do a lot of traveling. But live your good life, whatever it is. Raise your salary. You can do that with the inexpensive master's degree and then professional development. On this slide you can see I totaled up all of the salary lanes, and with that master's plus 54, you'll make $564,000 more over your 28-year teaching career than just having a bachelor's. That's about $10,000 to $30,000 more each year. So get that master's, get the PD work in. Next, your very first step that you need to do is find your Paratable. You can Google Colorado Paratables and it will take you to a link. There are 9 Paratables currently. Mine is shown on the left, Paratable number 2, and the latest one is on the right. Your goal is to get out of those green shaded boxes because you will get a reduced benefit inside of those boxes. You can see my table has a lot less of those green shaded boxes, and that's why it's so much more appealing. At age 50, I will be able to retire with 30 years of experience, and I will get 75% of my highest annual salary. Now if you look on this new table, most teachers will end up having to work until age 65 or until they have 35 years of service. So you can see why it's so important for these new younger teachers that are just starting out to start those investments so that if they decide to quit inside of this white area, or maybe even inside of this green area, they're able to make up the difference using those investments. So find your PERA table. All right, once you've done that, you need to figure out how much more you're going to need to save. And you'll probably need to fill out a budgeting worksheet, which I've got listed on the presentation, that lists all of your monthly costs. Healthcare will probably be the big one when you retire until you qualify for Medicare. So once you know that, you can figure out, in this example, I'm going to get $4,000 from PERA each month. I need an extra $1,000 to make that up to meet my $5,000 monthly budget. So I multiply this 1,000 times 12, I get 12,000, and then by using this 4% rule, I need to multiply that number times 25, and I end up with this amount, 300,000. So in other words, in order to make up this $1,000 a month during my retirement, I need to try to save up around 300,000 in my investment accounts. We can help you with these calculations. Send me an email for help. Always happy to help. Carl Fish talks about this a bit in his book also. What to invest in? Investing 101, bonds. Those are loans to the government or corporations, usually to build buildings and that sort of thing, or infrastructure. Less risk, less reward. And it's not like you're going to go out and buy a bond yourself. It will happen through a company like Vanguard or through your 401k. Talk about that more in a second. Stocks. You've all heard of Amazon, Apple, Google. You can buy a small piece of these businesses, although I don't recommend buying individual stocks. We'll talk about index funds in a second, but they're going to offer more risk but more reward. Okay, and your asset allocation is the ratio of stocks to bonds. When you're young, you want more stocks. You can afford to take more risk because you're not going to need the money very soon. As you get older, you'll need more bonds because you'll need that money to be there when you're ready to spend it. And that's the beautiful thing about the target date fund, which is the next bullet. The target date fund automatically sets up that asset allocation for you, and as you get older and closer to retirement, it will automatically put more bonds into your funds. All you need to know is the approximate date that you're going to retire, and that's the fund that you'll purchase through your 401k or through your Roth IRA, whichever account you choose. Next item is mutual funds, and I'm talking about actively managed mutual funds here. Companies will hire very smart people to try to pick winning and losing stocks, and they bundle all of them into this thing called a mutual fund. And the hope is they outperform the market. As it turns out, this is a very difficult thing to do over the long run. Very few people are successful at it. The problem with the actively managed mutual funds is if you invest in those, they have much higher fees, and you have to recoup those fees, hopefully by outperforming the market. Advisors like those because they earn commissions off of them, but those commissions you pay for out of your pocket. And so that's why I prefer something called index funds, and most certified financial planners will agree. These are very low fee funds where you don't try to pick any particular winning or losing stocks. You just buy the whole basket. So the S&P 500 is the most famous example, where you're buying all 500 of the largest U.S. companies. The Vanguard Total Stock Market is another famous example. Those are available in your 401k, in your Roth IRA. They have low fees. You get the average, which in life getting the average isn't usually good, but when it comes to the stock market, getting the average turns out to actually be a great thing over 20 to 30 years. Jack Bogle, who started Vanguard, had a quote, "Why look for the needle when you can buy the haystack?" And that's why he invented the Vanguard Total Stock Market, where you buy all 3,500 U.S. companies. Over 10, 20, 30 years, you will win. This is a screenshot from the day that I made this presentation. The S&P 500 is closed, I think, even higher than this yesterday. But I bring this up because of the rule of 72. You can put your money in a bank earning about 0.05%. And if you look at the calculation, 72 divided by 0.05% tells us it's going to take 1,440 years for your money to double. Now, on the other hand, if you buy the S&P 500 or Vanguard Total Stock Market, those average about 10% returns per year. So you take 72, divide by 10%, your money is going to double every 7.2 years. That's that rule of 72. So which one do you think you're going to have a better chance of earning wealth over the long run? Nobody is going to live 1,440 years. We will all live much longer than 7.2 years. So any money besides your emergency fund is a good idea to go ahead and get it invested based on your risk tolerance. And if you're a young person, that probably means S&P 500 kinds of funds. As you're older, that will mean more bonds, or just use a target date fund. This is a famous bet that Warren Buffett made. He's the world's best investor of all times. He is a firm believer also in this S&P 500 of buying the entire stock market. He bet a famous hedge fund manager that he would be able to beat him in a 10-year period using the S&P 500. He let this famous hedge fund manager build 5 different actively managed mutual funds, and after 10 years, here are the results. You can see that Warren Buffett clearly beat this hedge fund manager that was highly regarded by everybody in the financial world. And this graph is just an illustration of why it's a good idea to stick with these index-based total market funds over the long run. It's just so hard to overcome the fees of these high-cost, actively managed mutual funds. For your retirement investments, the statistics and the math says to go ahead and invest in total index funds. In the long run, you'll almost always outperform the more expensive actively managed funds. You saw this example in my teacher lottery. Teachers will have choices of a 401k, 457, 403b. Without much information, we're asking them to make an important decision about their financial future. Many teachers end up guessing, or they just go with the convenient product. So if you watch the teacher lottery, I asked you to pick. I'll do it again here just for the fun of it. Go ahead and pick. Let's see who wins that contest. The teachers are all investing 10% into the same funds over 35 years. Teacher A that picked that 401k beat the other two hands down with 1.1 million. The 403b came out last with 663,000, and that's largely due to the high fees that are charged in that 403b variable annuity. About a 2.5–3% fee. It's just hard to overcome that, and that's why our 401k with the lowest fees won that contest. The reason that this happens is because of something called fees. The 401k has very low fees. Over 30 years, you're only giving up 3% of your wealth. The 457 has a range of fees. The particular 2060 target date fund that I used in this example gave up about 20% of her wealth. And then the 403b, the variable annuity, has the highest fees. And you can see after 30 years, you're going to give up 60% of your wealth back to the company. Even the 403bs that we have access to that aren't variable annuities tend to have very high fees because they come with financial advisors that use expensive, actively managed mutual funds. You may think that you're going to do better down here with a higher fee product. The statistics tell us the opposite. The statistics tell us that the low fee plans will almost always outperform the high fee plans over 10, 20, 30 years just because it's so hard to overcome those fees. Which account to use? The 457 you can access early if you're looking for an early retirement. I always encourage you to go for that 457. The 401k has the lowest fees. If you're not looking at retiring early, use that 401k because of the low fees. Both of these allow you to currently put $19,500 into those each year. per month. You will have to do the math, and then you fill out the payroll deduction. Your Roth IRA is separate from your employment, and it's another great account. It happens after tax, and so all of your earnings will grow tax-free with that Roth IRA. If you want to set up a Roth IRA, I recommend calling Vanguard or Fidelity to set that up through a low-cost brokerage, and currently that allows $6,000 per year. Now realize if you're over the age of 50, you can actually invest more into these three products. Currently, my wife and I max out all of our tax advantage space over half of our income, and that's because we're trying to catch up for those early years that we didn't contribute enough. I can't recommend the 403b because of the high fees. You may consider stopping your 403b and starting one of these lower fee plans. Okay, set up that automatic payroll deduction, or else you'll just never be able to keep up on top of it every month. So set up that automatic payroll deduction. Just know that on any of these accounts that have a Roth choice, that just means that they're after tax, and you'll pay the taxes now, but you won't pay any taxes later down the road. The traditional, the 457 and the 401k, those are pre-tax. They lower your tax bracket now, but later you'll have to pay taxes on those. So it really comes down to which tax bracket you're in, and Carl Fish does a nice job of explaining that in his book. This is a flowchart that you might consider. It's based off of a famous book called The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. This recommendation is based entirely off of the fees that are charged by the plans, but you might start here with your Roth IRA, especially if you're a new teacher. Call Vanguard, set that up. If you're under 50, you can do $6,000 a year. If you want something aggressive, you could do that Vanguard Total Stock Market. If you want something more conservative, choose that target date. Okay, it has some income limits, so you'll need to look up your adjusted gross income. Make sure that you don't exceed that. If you have money left over, hopefully you do, then ask, do you want to retire before 55? If yes, then you'll fund that 457. And again, if you want to be aggressive, you could do the Vanguard Total Stock Market within it. If you want to be conservative, you could build your own target date fund using those Vanguard funds. That would require doing some reading up on or asking me for some help. Now, if you don't want to retire before 57 or 55, you can go to the PERA 401k. It's got the lowest fees. You can do another $19,500 if you're under 50. Again, you would fill out that payroll reduction. It puts you in the target date fund automatically. If you want it to be more aggressive, you could change that to the US large cap fund. You can choose either pre-tax or Roth on this one. Then if you have money left over, you can go ahead and fund all three of these for a total of almost $50,000. You may want to also read Carl's book, pages 79 through 84, to get some more suggestions and helpful hints on which types of funds to invest in. Here is the payroll deduction form. You would just fill this out. I've got a link to it on this page. Pick the fund, tell them how much you want to put in each month, send it in. If it's by the 10th of the month, they'll begin funding that account. Now with the 457, you'll need to call Empower to set that up, and the 800 number is right here. If you decide to stop any of those products, you can fill out another form like this one and send it into the payroll department. I recommend Vanguard for your Roth IRA. That's where you would pick up the phone, call Vanguard, Fidelity. They're two low-cost brokerages. This is your non-employer account. It comes out of your bank account. See Carl's book, again, 79 through 84 for fund suggestions. If you're saving for college for 529, first make sure that your retirement is taken care of, period, because you can't get a loan for your retirement, but your kids could get a loan for college. I recommend using Colorado College Invest that qualifies for the state tax deduction. I recommend using this direct portfolio option with the Vanguard option, and you can select from conservative, moderate, or aggressive, and it will take care of everything for you. Plus, you'll get this awesome state tax deduction. and all of this money will grow tax-free, and it will be tax-free as long as your child uses it for educational expenses. But again, make sure that your retirement is taken care of first. More resources for you. Carl Fish's book is awesome. The Simple Path to Wealth is another awesome, famous book. I would read Carl's first, then The Simple Path. Teacher Moolah is a Facebook group that you might join where you can ask questions. 403 Be Wise is a nonprofit that helps teachers make decisions about their retirement and which funds to use. Bogleheads.org is a financial discussion forum where you can ask anonymous questions about your investments. Clark.com is a great website with really unbiased information to help you out. And then another book by a friend of mine, Crystal Duffy, Retirement for Teachers. A real easy book to read in an hour or two that's very helpful. Key takeaways: no one will care about your money like you. Money's a bad subject to suck at. Learn. Okay. Save as much as you can, but live your good life. Stuff won't make you happy. Okay. Start early or have to save a lot more later because of this thing called compounding interest, which I'm sure you've all heard of. Fees matter, whether you're inside of PSD or outside. So just because you're watching this and you're using your husband's workplace account or you're using an outside financial advisor, doesn't make you immune from fees. In fact, your spouse may be paying higher fees than you in their workplace, or through your financial advisor. You may actually be paying higher fees than you would by using your workplace account. So it's important that you investigate those fees. And just a word of caution, if you ask your advisor about fees, they will almost always downplay the amount of fees that you're using. But remember that chart. Paying just 2 or 3% in fees eats up half of your retirement in 30 years. You are paying fees no matter what your advisor tells you. Lower fees equals more money for you. And my number one goal is to get my fees as low as I can. Use your tax advantage accounts, your 401k, your 457b, your Roth IRA. Find and know your PERA pension table and your monthly benefit. You can call PERA for that. Finally, avoid any mistakes or excessive risk. Don't buy whole or universal life insurance. There's not very many people that makes sense for mathematically, unless you have a special needs child or something like that. Generally, don't mix insurance with investing. Buy term life insurance instead if you need it because you have a wife or kids or spouse and kids. And then invest the savings, and that's going to put you way ahead of buying a whole or universal life insurance policy. I can't recommend a 403b variable annuity product just because of the fees and those early surrender penalties, which I forgot to mention earlier. Using expensive brokerages, use a low-cost brokerage like Vanguard or Fidelity or Charles Schwab so that you're not giving up too much money in fees. Paying high fees to financial advisors or expensive mutual funds, they're just going to transfer your wealth from your pocket to theirs. Buying individual stocks, speculating on things, sectors like gold and Bitcoin, doing that with less than 5% of your retirement money is probably okay. Personally, I don't use any of my money, but if you want to do it, do a smaller amount, like 5% or less. Avoid margin and options trading, which popular apps like Robinhood have started to encourage. You're investing with money that's been loaned to you, and that's just a very risky thing to do unless you're experienced at it. Going into debt, especially high interest debt, credit card debt, avoid that. Buying a house you can't afford, and sometimes it's better just to rent. It's okay to rent. Owning a home isn't something that everybody has to do. Renting and then investing that down payment or being able to invest more because you're not making high mortgage payment might put you ahead. Marrying the wrong person, if you're financially incompatible, that's going to be really a difficult thing to overcome. Avoid the hype and the news and the media. You're always going to be hearing about stock market crashes and that sort of thing, buying different products ignore that. Make your plan, read Carl's book, make your plan, stick to your plan. Timing the market is an impossible thing to do. You have to time it twice. When do you take your money out? When do you put it back in? Most people can't do it, so avoid the temptation. Instead, just dollar cost average, and that means just make your monthly contributions. That way you'll be buying when the market's going down, and you'll be buying when the market's going back up. Over a long period of time, 10, 20, 30 years, you will come out ahead if you use that dollar cost average monthly contributions. All right, so that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. There's lots of people that are willing to help through the different Facebook groups and bogleheads.org. But finally, do yourself a favor, buy Carl Fish's book for $9 on Amazon. You'll be happy that you did it. Thanks for watching.